Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Sheddock Customs. For those that are subscribing and for those that are watching, I guess it's been a few weeks now, a few challenges along the way. But I thought I'd start a new episode or a new series of episodes about the plans for the Triumph. I'm going to have a go at hill climbing this year on the bike. Well, that's the plan. And to do that, I need to get the bike a little bit more compliant with the rules that you need to comply with to ride the bike. They're not massively different. They're not massively different from what the bike sits at the moment, but there's a few changes I need to make. So I'll put up on the screen an excerpt from the rules that I'm looking at. So basically I've got to fit an enclosed primary drive chain cover, a rear chain cover. You need a stop switch for the magneto, and we need to wire the sump plug and the gearbox drain plug, and we need to put some number boards on the back around the mudguard. So I'm going to take you through fabricating some of that stuff and some of the challenges that are involved. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. So this cover that we're going to make, as we talked about, we obviously need a main chain cover, but we're also going to make a primary drying cover. So at the moment I've got this aluminium bar which I don't think is going to comply. So we're going to need to make something to cover up the chain. So what I'm intending to do, you've got three, I'm using one of them at the moment, got three bolted positions around the front which we can use to pick up. We've got the footrest where I've used a mount at the back there, so we're going to use that as well. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a perimeter of aluminium, like a strip that's going to be, say, 40mm wide. I'm going to fold it round in that sort of shape you can imagine with the chain, but with some clearance. And then I'm going to weld a flat plate on the front with the clutch poking through and a little hole for that to poke through. And hopefully that will be sufficient. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a measurement from the centre of the cranks out to these holes, and I'm going to take one from the centre of the clutch out to the outside of the chain, and then I'll use that to make a drawing of what I'm going to make. Yeah, could be interesting. I'll bring you back in a bit. Okay, so friend of the channel, Les, has donated these bits to me. And as you've probably seen as part of the other video, we're going to be trying to make this thing compliant with what I'm imagining the scrutineers are going to pick up when we do the hill climbing, assuming we ever get an entry. So we've got a primary drive, which is going to need a bit of fiddling, but I certainly think it sort of fits in with the image of the bike. And then we've got a very rusty looking chain guard, which is going to get chopped about a fair bit and the rust removed. So at the moment I've got my homemade primary chain guard, which is just like a tubular piece of aluminium, and we are not running any chain guard at the back. This is my want, so I don't really want to be swapping these things over and making it, but you've got to be able to comply to be able to ride. So I'll get the tools out and we'll take that off. We've also got to take the brake lever off to be able to get to that, because right in the back there is the plate that holds that, and that's also held by the bolt that holds the brake lever on. So anyway, I'll take all that off and then I'll bring you back. So if you've watched my other videos, you might have seen this off the bike before. So this is the guard I made before. And then here's the one that Les has provided. It's just resting on there at the moment. But it looks like it's going to provide all the clearance I need, and it certainly covers the chain. And then my plan is this is where the brake arm's been removed. There's the brake arm with the rod through it. I'm going to make a bracket to come off of there, and then the other part I'm going to do is, I don't know if you can see in there, move that out of the way, see that double hole with two holes beside it? That's where the original foot pegs would have mounted, and then they came through the primary chime cover, if I get my words out. So I'm going to make a piece of aluminium to come out of there with a nice washer on the back to take the support, and then I'm going to have to work out where that comes in here and drill a hole and have another washer on the outside and have a bolt going through so it's easily removed. And then depending on how secure that is, I might use another one of these pickup holes around the front and make a little bracket to go on that. So let's get on with that. The other thing I'd say is, I'm not sure whether we're going to be able to use the same bracket to hold the rear chain guard. So somehow, if you can appreciate the chain guards coming over the top of here, that's probably the only support we've got. Or we might be able to come out and make a bracket to this bolt, just to make sure we don't get in the way of the brake arm. And then we're going to need a front attachment point, which is why I'm saying I might make another bracket to come down off of this one from the chain guard down. But enough waffling. Let's see how we get on. Okay, so bit of fun on the lathe. Turn that up with a shoulder that's going to fit into that gearbox mount. And then I've made a transfer punch, if that'll focus. There you go. So I've just, try that again. Come on. I've just basically turned a point on the end of that. And then the idea is going to be, I'm going to mount it to the bike, and then I'm going to sit the cover over the top and give that a thump from the other side, if you like, to put a mark on the cover. So when it's behind here somewhere, and give it a tap on the hammer with a hammer, and it will put a mark on the back of this. And I can take this off, drill it, and I'll get the position exactly right, because at the moment it's very difficult to work out where that would land in there. And the other thing I've made is a washer to go on the outside with a counterbore in it. So basically the back's going to be nutted on, so it's fixed permanently, and the front's going to screw through from the outside into that thread once I've taken that centering punch out. Okay, so I'll mount it all up on the bike, and hopefully, if that's not made any sense, what you'll see in a minute will. Maybe. Okay, so now it's mounted up onto that gearbox plate, and then we've obviously got the point protruding. So when I put the cover on, like I said, we'll be able to mark it from the other side. So all I've got to try and do now is get that cover in a nice place. Excuse me. So I've got all the clearances I'm looking for. I'll try and, I can feel that somewhere behind there. So obviously the gearbox goes backwards and forwards to adjust the primary chain. So it's only ever going to go backwards, I would say, in my opinion. It might come forward a little bit. The chain's not in bad nick, so it's probably pretty good. So I just want to get that even around there. Looks pretty good. So the punch is somewhere around there. And there's the hole. Or there's the pin. Right, so I can drill that, take that out, put a nut in it, or put a bolt in from the other side. Okay, I'll bring you back in a minute. Okay, so we've drilled the hole. All you do is just get this to Right, so nice bit of clearance around the front, a bit of twist just to get the chain. And then what we're going to do now, hopefully, if you can see, is we're going to make a bracket to come off of here to there, so that it's not just relying on that one fixing. I want something to stop it potentially twisting. I don't think it's going to go anywhere particularly, and it's pretty damn solid. Going to rattle a bit, I think, maybe, which might drive me nuts. Maybe I'll make a bracket to go in there if I bring it around to that. So if I make something, I could reuse that bolt fixing in there and just give myself an attachment point which will stop that just vibrating or rattling or whatever else it might do. So I'll get my head out of my head, let me watch it, and come up with a plan about how I'm going to design. I'm pointing at something and you're not seeing it. I'm going to try and work out what I'm going to make for that. Something that's obviously going to be flat out of here with a hole in it and come along and then fit around this and hold it in a nice shape. Okay, I'll take it to bits and I'll bring you back in a bit when I've worked out what I'm doing. So I've made the rear bracket, which is just a piece of angle iron, and I've cut a series of slots in it and folded it round. And then I've made the piece that's going to go onto the foot peg hole, and I've folded up the corners so it's going to make it a lot stiffer. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to put those two over there, I'm going to pop rivet that to that, and then I'm going to pop rivet this shape, which should be the right position, or the right radius to match with the chain guard. I've thought of all sorts of ways I could make it. Would have had to have made it out of something thicker really to weld it together, and it's only as strong as the piece that you put it against. So the actual chain guard cover is not that strong, to be fair. So in theory, it's not taking any load. It's just trying to stop itself from vibrating. Hence why I've just put a couple of strengthens in, and I can get a series of pop rivets around that, which will give it a bit of strength. So I'm going to mount. I think what I'm going to do next is I'm going to mount the cover, drill the holes, pop rivet this to this, then I can bolt that to the bike. So here it is, the finished item, and here's the end piece. So we've pop riveted that on. I suppose there's a question mark maybe about using pop rivets, but the rest of the chain case came with pop rivets on it already. I suppose in the real world, if you were making this as a completely period part, you would have used solid rivets, but I didn't want to go that far. This new bracket at the end, you can see it's got, or hopefully you can see, it's got a couple of turned up edges on the sides, go leading down towards the triangle with the hole on it. So that builds in some strength. So when it's mounted, it's going to resist being twisted backwards and forwards. And here it is mounted to the bike. So obviously mounted at the rear, mounted in the middle. You can't see the bracket mounted at the front, but I'll show you that in another view when we get outside. So now we need to do is work out how we're going to get the new chain case on, which is going to be the next episode.